It started with a single, innocent text. At least, I thought it was innocent when I first saw it. The kind of message you receive every now and then, something that's just a few words long. But when it landed on my phone, I had no idea that it would be the beginning of the unraveling of everything I thought I knew. Her name is Marie. We've been married for just under 5 years, and like most couples, we've had our share of good days and bad days. But honestly, I thought our relationship was stronger than most. People say that love fades over time, but I always believed that it wasn't just love that kept us together. It was trust, respect, and understanding. We'd built a life based on those things. Or so I thought. The day the text came in started out like any other. I was at home, working on some freelance projects when I heard my phone buzz. I didn't think much of it at first. It was probably just a notification about some random sale or news update. But when I saw the name on the screen, my stomach dropped. It wasn't from Marie. It was from a number I didn't recognize, and the message was simple, just 4 words. I miss you, Marie. I stared at those words for a long time. I didn't even know what to feel at first. I wasn't angry, but I was confused. Marie had never mentioned anyone who might send her a message like this. She wasn't the type to flirt, or so I thought. She was focused, dedicated to her work, and, above all, she was loyal. But why would someone, anyone, text her that they missed her? At first, I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe it was just a friend, someone from her past, reaching out for some reason I didn't understand. But then, my mind started racing. Why wouldn't she mention it? If it was just a casual message, why wouldn't she tell me about it? I tried to push the thought out of my head. After all, Marie had always been open with me. If something was going on, I was sure she'd tell me. But then the texts kept coming. Over the next few days, there were more, always from the same number, always with the same vague, emotional undertones. There was nothing overtly inappropriate about them, but the words started to build a story in my head, one I didn't want to believe. Are you thinking about me too? I wish I could be with you right now. I won't stop until I see you again. I was glued to my phone, reading and rereading those messages, each time growing more uneasy. The text messages weren't just casual anymore. They were intimate, personal, and as I read them, I began to feel like I was the outsider, like I wasn't the one she was talking to anymore. At this point, I couldn't ignore it any longer. I needed to know what was happening. I had to talk to her about it. But then came the part one never expected. I decided to confront Marie, but before I could gather the courage to ask her about the texts, I received a phone call. It wasn't from her. It was from an unfamiliar name, an unknown contact. Without thinking, I picked it up, half expecting it to be some telemarketer. But when I heard the voice on the other end, everything changed. Hey, Gregor. It's Luke. Luke. I had never heard of this person before. There was a long pause, a moment where I could feel the weight of the conversation coming, even though I didn't yet understand what was happening. I know this might be hard to hear, but I think Marie needs to tell you something, Luke said, his voice calm, but with an edge of concern that sent a chill down my spine. What do you mean? Who are you? I asked, my voice tight with confusion. I'm someone from her past, Luke said, and my heart raced. I've been in touch with her for a while now, and I think it's time you knew the truth. I stood frozen. The room suddenly felt small, suffocating. I didn't know what to say. Luke continued, but his words barely registered. All I could hear was a constant ringing in my ears. Marie, my wife, had been hiding something from me, and for the first time, I realized that maybe I didn't know her as well as I thought I did. I'm not saying anything yet, but you need to talk to her, Luke said. She's in a place right now where she doesn't know what to do. But I think you should know that this isn't just a misunderstanding. You deserve to hear this from her, not me. The line went dead. I stood there, holding the phone, staring at the screen as it went black. What had just happened? Who was Luke? What did he mean by she doesn't know what to do? I knew one thing for certain now. Everything I had known about my marriage, about Marie, was a lie. There was something she wasn't telling me. There was someone else, and whatever this Luke was talking about, I couldn't ignore it any longer. The rest of that evening was a blur. I didn't sleep, didn't eat. I just kept replaying the conversation over and over in my head. And as the hours passed, I began to prepare myself for the inevitable. The truth was coming, and it was going to hurt. But what I didn't expect was how that truth would come to me. And when it did, it wasn't just a single moment that shattered everything. It would be a series of events, small moments that all connected like pieces of a puzzle, each more painful than the last. But for now, all I could do was wait. Wait for Marie to come home. Wait for her to walk through that door, and wait for her to face what I already knew. The night dragged on, longer than any night I could remember. I didn't sleep a wink, despite my exhaustion. I kept running the conversation with Luke over and over in my head. What did he mean? Why had Marie been in touch with someone from her past without telling me? The questions felt endless, and the answers were nowhere to be found. The worst part? I had no idea what was going to happen next. I had no clue how I was supposed to confront her, or even if I was ready to hear what she might say. Was I even prepared for the truth, whatever it was? The uncertainty gnawed at me. When Marie finally came home the next evening, I was already sitting in the living room, my mind racing. She looked the same as always, cheerful, maybe even a little too cheerful. She greeted me with her usual warm smile, and I noticed how she tried to act normal. Too normal. "Hey, babe, how was your day?" she asked, setting her bag down on the counter. It was the same question she asked every night, but this time, it felt different. I couldn't just brush it off. The tension in the room was palpable, and I knew it wasn't going to stay hidden for long. I took a deep breath and looked at her, my heart pounding in my chest. "Marie," I said, my voice steady but thick with emotion, "I need to ask you something. Something that's been bothering me." She froze. The smile faded from her face, and I saw the briefest flicker of panic in her eyes. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by the calm, collected woman I had always known. "What is it, Gregor? You're scaring me." "I got a text today," I continued, watching her closely, "from someone named Luke. He says he knows you, that you've been in touch with him. And he said I should talk to you." Her face paled. For the first time in years, I saw something in her eyes that I'd never seen before, guilt. And it was enough to make my blood run cold. "Gregor, she began, but I wasn't going to let her hide anymore. "Who is Luke?" I interrupted, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and fear. "Why didn't you tell me about him?" Marie took a step back, her hand gripping the counter as though it were the only thing holding her up. She opened her mouth again, but no words came out. It felt like time had frozen, like we were both stuck in that one terrible moment, unable to move forward. Finally, she spoke, but her voice was barely above a whisper. "I never wanted you to find out like this." She shook her head, almost as if she were talking to herself. "I should have told you, but I didn't know how. I didn't know what to think." The way she was acting, it was as if the walls were crumbling around us, and I was just standing there, helpless. What was she hiding? Why had she kept this from me? My mind was spinning, but I stayed focused on her, waiting for an explanation. "Tell me the truth, Marie," I said, my voice quieter now, but no less firm. "What's really going on?" She took a deep breath and looked at me, the mask finally slipping away. Luke is someone I knew before we met. We were close once, but I thought that chapter of my life was over. I didn't want to bring him up because I knew it would only hurt you." I felt a coldness in my chest. "So you've been in contact with him behind my back?" Marie nodded, her face full of regret. "Yes, but it wasn't what you think. It's not what he made it seem, either. I never meant for this to go so far." I could feel my heart pounding in my ears, the anger and confusion threatening to overtake me. "Then why didn't you tell me? Why keep it a secret? What else have you been hiding, Marie?" Her eyes filled with tears, and she reached out to touch my arm. "I didn't want to hurt you. I swear. It was a mistake. But I've been thinking about him lately. I never expected this to happen." The words hit me like a slap in the face. I didn't know whether to be angry, devastated, or both. But one thing was clear. There was more to this than just some old connection. There was something deeper, something she wasn't telling me. "I don't understand," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Why did you keep him from me? Why didn't you just tell me?" "I was scared, Gregor," she said, tears streaming down her face now. "I didn't want you to feel like you weren't enough. But I realized I've been lying to myself and to you. I don't know what I want anymore." I felt like the ground beneath me was giving way, like the life we had built together was falling apart in slow motion. And in that moment, I realized something. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was the beginning of the end. As I looked at her, I knew there was no going back. The truth had come out, but it was only the beginning of something far worse. What came next was beyond anything I could have prepared for. I couldn't breathe. Marie's words echoed in my mind, but they didn't make sense. I don't know what I want anymore. Those words, spoken with such raw honesty, were like a dagger to my chest. She was standing there, crying, looking like she'd just lost everything, and in some way, I felt like I had, too. But something about her confession didn't sit right. "You're scared?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. "You're scared of what exactly?" She wiped her eyes and shook her head. "I didn't mean for this to happen. It was just a conversation at first. But then I started thinking about him again, about the past. And when I heard from him recently, I didn't know how to handle it. I stepped back, unable to keep my distance anymore. So you were talking to him behind my back, and now it's all coming out? Do you even know how long this has been going on?" Her lips trembled, but she didn't answer right away. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number, and for a moment, I debated whether or not to pick it up. But something told me I had to. I was already too far down this path to stop now. I glanced at Marie, my hand shaking as I answered the call. "Hello." There was a pause on the other end. "Gregor, it's Luke," the voice said, his tone cold, like he'd been waiting for this moment for a long time. "I think it's time we finally talked." I looked at Marie, whose face had gone pale. She shook her head, almost pleading with me to hang up. But I couldn't. I needed answers. "Talk," I repeated, my voice low. "What do you mean, Luke?" He sighed heavily, and I could practically hear the smirk in his voice. "I'm sure you have a lot of questions, but I think you deserve the truth. Marie isn't the person you think she is. And if you want to understand what's really been going on, you need to hear it from me." I felt the room spin. "What are you talking about?" I demanded, my patience thinning. "Come to the old cafe on Maple Street," Luke said, his voice smooth. "I'll explain everything. You need to hear it all before it's too late." The line went dead before I could say another word. I looked at Marie, my mind racing. She was visibly shaking now, tears welling up in her eyes. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Luke's words felt like a threat, like a promise that would shatter whatever was left of my life. "I didn't want this," Marie whispered, her voice breaking. "I swear, Gregor, I never wanted this to happen. Please don't go there." I stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do. Part of me wanted to storm out and confront Luke right then and there, but another part of me was frozen in fear. What was the truth? And how much of it could I even handle? But I knew one thing. I couldn't ignore this. I had to go. I had to find out what Luke was going to say, even if it tore everything apart. "I'm going," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Marie reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "You don't understand," she said, her voice desperate. "There's so much more I haven't told you, but I can't. I need answers," I interrupted, feeling a weight lift off my chest. For the first time in days, I felt like I was taking control. And I'll get them, even if it means losing everything. I drove to Maple Street in a daze, the streetlights flickering by as I tried to piece together everything that had happened. Marie's tear-streaked face, Luke's cryptic words, the texts. My mind was spinning. What could he possibly have to say that would make sense of this mess? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was horribly wrong, but I couldn't stop myself from going. I had to know. When I arrived at the cafe, the familiar smell of roasted coffee beans filled the air, but everything else felt off. The place was nearly empty, and the few people there barely paid me any attention. It felt like the calm before a storm. I stepped inside, looking around, and then I saw him. Luke was sitting at a table in the back, a dark figure in a corner, his eyes fixed on me. He didn't look like someone I'd expect to be tangled up in my life. He was dressed casually, yet there was an air of confidence about him, as if he knew something I didn't. I walked over, my heart pounding in my chest. "Luke," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What is this about?" He didn't respond immediately, just leaned back in his chair, studying me. "Sit down," he finally said, motioning to the empty seat across from him. "We have a lot to talk about." I hesitated for a moment, but then I sat down. I was too far in now to back out. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but I want answers." Luke smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who knew more than they were letting on. "It's not a game, Gregor," he said, his voice smooth, almost taunting. "It's the truth, and I think it's time you faced it." He paused for a moment, as if deciding where to start. "You've been living in a fantasy," he continued. "You think Marie is this perfect, loyal wife. But you have no idea what's been going on behind your back. She's not who you think she is." My chest tightened at his words, but I kept my voice calm. "What are you talking about? What's really going on?" Luke leaned forward, his eyes locking onto mine. I've known Marie for a long time. Longer than you, actually. And there's something you don't understand. She's been hiding something from you, something big, something you're not ready to hear. My pulse quickened, but I forced myself to stay composed. Just say it. Luke's smile faded, and he sat back in his chair, as if weighing how much to reveal. Marie and I have been close, really close, for years. I felt the floor drop out beneath me. What do you mean by close? His eyes glinted with something darker. You really think that everything between you two has been perfect? No secrets? She's been seeing me for months. Behind your back. You never saw it coming, did you? I couldn't breathe. The room felt like it was closing in on me. I wanted to shout, to demand more details, but I was frozen. My worst fears were starting to come true, and I wasn't sure how much more I could take. Luke continued, almost enjoying the effect his words were having on me. She told me everything. About you, about your relationship, and about how she was starting to feel like she was trapped in a life she didn't want. I felt like I was going to collapse. You're lying, I whispered, but the words sounded hollow, even to me. Deep down, I knew I wasn't ready for this, but I needed to hear it. I needed to know if it was true. Luke didn't back down. It's all true, Gregor. And I think you deserve to hear it from me, not from her. She won't tell you the full truth, because she's scared. Scared of you finding out who she really is. I didn't know what to do with the words that were tumbling out of his mouth. Was this all a lie? Or had everything I knew been a carefully constructed facade? I stared at Luke, my mind racing. You should leave her, Luke said, almost casually. She's not worth fighting for. Trust me, I've been there, I've seen it all. It's better to walk away before she drags you down with her. His words stung, but there was something about them that felt like a truth I wasn't ready to admit. I couldn't think straight. I had to get out of there, but I also had to confront Marie. I had to know if any of this was real. I stood up abruptly, my hands shaking. I'll deal with this myself, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. You've said enough. Luke watched me as I walked away, but there was no regret in his eyes. Only the cold satisfaction of someone who had just delivered the final blow. I left the cafe without another word, my mind in turmoil. The world around me felt like it was falling apart. I didn't know if I could face Marie after hearing all of this, but one thing was certain. The lies had been exposed. And now, I had to decide what to do next. When I got home, I didn't know what I was expecting. I thought I'd be angry, screaming at Marie for everything I had just learned. But all I felt was numb. My thoughts were too jumbled to process. I walked into the house, barely noticing the stillness. Marie was sitting on the couch, waiting for me, as if nothing had changed. She smiled when she saw me, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Gregor, we need to talk, she said, her voice shaky, but not with fear, more like a quiet resignation. I closed the door behind me and just stood there, trying to steady my breath. I should have confronted her immediately, but I couldn't. The weight of everything Luke had said kept pushing against my mind, clouding my judgment. I spoke to Luke, I said, my voice steady, but the words felt heavier than I expected. Her face fell. The smile disappeared, and for the first time in a long while, I saw her vulnerability. She stood up slowly, her body stiff. I didn't want you to find out like this, she whispered. I shook my head, my mind reeling. I didn't want to find out at all. Why, Marie? Why would you do this? Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak at first. She was struggling to find the words. I never meant for things to go this far, Gregor, she finally said. It just happened, and I didn't know how to stop it. I took a step toward her, my heart pounding. How long? How long has this been going on? Her silence spoke volumes. A lifetime of trust had been shattered in a few moments, and I couldn't bring myself to ask any more questions. I didn't want to know the details, but the answers were already written on her face. Months, she finally said quietly. Since last year. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. My legs nearly gave way. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, barely able to breathe. Why keep lying? Was I not enough for you? She flinched at the words, her face crumpling. No, Gregor, it's not like that. It wasn't about you. It was. I felt lost. You were so focused on everything else. I felt alone, like I was fading away. And Luke, he made me feel seen again. But it was wrong. I know that now. I wanted to scream, to demand more answers, but I couldn't. There was a part of me that didn't want to hear it. I had already heard enough to break my heart. I don't know who you are anymore, I said, my voice breaking. The woman I married would never do this. You've completely changed. Marie reached out for me, but I stepped back, instinctively pulling away. Please, Gregor, I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I just got caught up in everything. I looked at her, tears welling in my eyes. This wasn't the woman I had fallen in love with. She wasn't the person who promised me forever. You've hurt me more than you know. The silence between us was suffocating, heavy with the weight of all the lies and broken trust. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how we could move forward from here. Would we ever be able to rebuild? Could I ever forgive her? But deep down, I knew something was over. Something I couldn't fix. The damage had already been done. The silence in the room was unbearable. Marie's eyes were pleading, but I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. Everything I thought I knew about our relationship had been upended in a matter of days. How do you come back from this? How do you look someone in the eye when you know they've been hiding something so huge? I turned away from her, not because I didn't care, but because I was scared of what I might say. I was scared of the anger that was bubbling inside me, the betrayal that I could barely contain. My hands were shaking as I ran them through my hair, trying to process everything. I don't know how to look at you anymore, I said quietly, my voice breaking. It was the truth. I didn't know what this was anymore. What we were. We were strangers now, tied together by memories that felt like they belonged to someone else. Someone else's life. Marie took a step forward, but I held up my hand to stop her. Don't. Please don't. I need space. I need to think. I'll leave, she said in a small, defeated voice. I'll go if that's what you want. I didn't answer immediately. Part of me wanted her to leave. But another part of me, I didn't know what I wanted. The thought of her walking out of the door made something inside me twist painfully. I had loved her. I had trusted her. Could I really just let that go? I don't know if I want you to leave, I finally said, my voice raw. But I don't know how we can fix this either. How can we go back to what we were? After everything that's happened? Marie's face crumpled, and I saw the guilt in her eyes. She took another step toward me, but I didn't move. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this, Gregor, she said, her voice desperate. I'll work to rebuild your trust. I swear I will. But I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. Could I really forget the months of lies, the deceit? Could I forget the way she had let someone else into our lives, into her heart? I didn't know. Do you love him? I asked, my voice quieter now, but the question hanging heavy between us. It wasn't the question I had wanted to ask, but it was the only one that mattered now. Marie's breath hitched, and she hesitated before answering. I don't know. It's complicated, Gregor. It was never about love. It was something I didn't understand. I felt lost, and he was there. Her answer felt like a punch in the stomach. She was admitting everything, but still, there was something she wasn't saying. Something that didn't sit right. I don't want to know more, I whispered, feeling my chest tighten. I don't want to hear anything else. Marie's face crumpled, and she finally broke down. The tears she'd been holding back spilled over, and I felt a flicker of the woman I once knew. But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I never meant to hurt you. I was selfish. I didn't think about what I was doing. I couldn't look at her. The guilt in her eyes made everything worse, because now I felt guilty too. For staying. For still caring. But it wasn't just about the past. It was about the future. Could I forgive her? Could I move past this? I didn't have the answers. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep living in this limbo. I had to make a decision, whether I was ready or not. I need time, I said, my voice hoarse. I can't make any decisions right now. Marie nodded, her face still streaked with tears. I understand. I'll give you the space you need. But the question still lingered in the back of my mind, gnawing at me. Could we ever go back to what we were? Or had this all been a warning that we were never meant to be? The days that followed were nothing short of excruciating. It wasn't just the silence between Marie and me. It was the emptiness in the house, the absence of the life we had built together. Every room felt cold, as if everything that once held meaning had been drained away. I stayed up late, unable to sleep, my mind replaying the same questions over and over. How could she do this? How could I have missed it? Was I just blind to what was happening right in front of me? One night, after what felt like an eternity of restless thoughts, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. The number was unfamiliar, but there was something about it that made my heart skip a beat. I answered before I could stop myself. Hello. My voice sounded hollow, even to me. Gregor. The voice on the other end was smooth, controlled, yet strangely familiar. It took a moment, but then it clicked. Luke. I stood there, frozen. What do you want? I asked, my tone barely above a whisper. I think we need to talk, he said, his voice still calm, but with a note of urgency that I couldn't ignore. You've been avoiding this, but it's time you know everything. A chill ran down my spine. I could feel my chest tightening. I've already heard enough from you, I replied, trying to keep my anger in check. He didn't back down. You think you've got the full picture, but you don't. There's something you need to hear. It's about Marie, about what's really been going on. I clenched my jaw. I didn't want to know more, but a part of me couldn't walk away. What do you mean? I can't explain it all over the phone. Meet me, he said. I'll be at the same cafe, the one on Maple Street. My heart hammered in my chest. Another meeting, another round of secrets. But something in his voice, something in the way he said it, told me that this was different. He wasn't just trying to mess with me anymore. I'm not meeting you, I said, trying to sound firm, but my words faltered. I'm done with this. But Luke didn't give up. I know you're hurting, Gregor, but you need to hear the truth. This isn't just about you and Marie anymore. This is bigger than that. Please, for your own sake. There was a long pause. I was torn. I didn't want to go, but I knew I had no choice. I had to find out what this was all about. What else had I missed? Fine, I said, my voice barely audible. I'll be there. The line went dead. I stood there, staring at the phone in my hand, feeling the weight of the decision pressed down on me. This was it. I was walking into whatever nightmare Luke was about to unfold, and there was no turning back. I drove back to Maple Street, my mind racing with every possible outcome. I wasn't sure what I was expecting when I walked into the cafe, but as soon as I stepped inside, I saw Luke sitting at the same corner table, as calm as ever. His eyes met mine, and for a brief moment, I saw something that surprised me, a flicker of genuine sympathy. It wasn't the smugness I'd expected. I walked over and sat down across from him, trying to stay composed, but I felt like everything was about to shatter again. What now, Luke? I asked, my voice tight. He didn't waste time. I've seen you hurting, he said quietly. I know you think Marie has betrayed you, but it's more complicated than that. I'm not here to make excuses for her actions, but there's something you need to know about the past few months. I stared at him, waiting for the bomb to drop. But instead, Luke did something I wasn't expecting. He took a deep breath and started talking about himself, about his life. It wasn't about Marie, at least not at first. It was about how he had been dealing with his own issues, how he'd been struggling with feelings of isolation and unfulfilled desires. I've been a mess, Gregor, Luke said, looking at me seriously. I wasn't trying to hurt you, but I didn't know how else to deal with everything that had been building up. I became someone I wasn't proud of. I blinked, confused. So what does this have to do with Marie? Everything, he said, his voice softening. You see, I never wanted to hurt her either. When she reached out to me, I was already in a bad place. I wasn't thinking straight. We both made a mistake. But I want you to know, Gregor, that nothing happened beyond what she told you. There was never any affair, no deeper connection. It was a moment of weakness. We both got caught up in the wrong things. I sat there, stunned. The revelation wasn't what I expected. It wasn't the drama or the betrayal I had imagined. Instead, Luke was owning up to his part, showing a vulnerability I hadn't anticipated. I never meant for any of this to happen, Luke continued, looking almost guilty. I thought that if I could help her, if I could get close to her, I might find a way to fix my own mess. But I only made things worse. I absorbed everything he said, the pieces falling into place. It wasn't some grand deception. It wasn't some secret love affair. It was a tangled mess of confusion, bad decisions, and two people reaching out to each other in the wrong way. Why didn't Marie tell me this? I asked, finally finding my voice. Because she was ashamed, Luke replied. She didn't want to hurt you, Gregor. She didn't know how to explain the mess she had gotten herself into. I sat back, absorbing the weight of his words. So what now? What am I supposed to do with all of this? Luke looked at me with an intensity one hadn't expected. You have to decide what you want, Gregor. You've been living in the shadow of this for too long. You deserve the truth, and you deserve a chance to heal. But the choice is yours. Will you let the past go, or will you let it define everything? I didn't have all the answers, but for the first time in a while, I felt like I had a choice in this. A real choice. That night, I went home. Marie was waiting for me, her eyes filled with uncertainty. But this time, I didn't see her as the person who had betrayed me. I saw her as someone who had made mistakes, someone who had been confused, just like I had been. We talked. And for the first time, we talked honestly, without barriers or half-truths. It wasn't easy, and it didn't fix everything right away, but it was a start. We agreed that it wasn't about forgetting what happened. It was about moving forward, together, with the understanding that trust had to be rebuilt, piece by piece. But this time, it felt different. This time, we were both ready to do the hard work. Maybe it wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was real. And for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope.